Hello Buddy Crow, back again, and I'm here ranking the tables from Season 2 on the Pinball Arcade. Now when I set out to start working on ranking Season 2 tables, I found that I had not played any of them at all on my PlayStation 4. So I played all the Season 2 tables on the PlayStation 4 until I got all the standard goals for the tables. Well, all except for one, but I'll explain that when we get to that table. Now, there's 19 tables in Season 2, and out of the 19, 8 of them are Gottlieb tables. So, when watching my rankings of these tables, don't be surprised about how the Gottlieb tables are ranked compared to the Williams and Bally tables, because I simply prefer the Williams and Bally tables to the Gottlieb tables. Speaking of rankings, just as before, there's no formula or anything I used to rank the tables. I just played them and then ordered them. It's totally just my opinion based on playing the PlayStation 4 version. So, without any more delay, let's start with the rankings. Starting with the table I ranked the lowest. At number 19, we have Going Nuts. Now, this table is really an oddity in the Pinball Arcade lineup, and that's one of the reasons I marked it as the lowest ranked table in Season 2. This table never went into production, and only about 10 prototype tables were ever created. The way this game plays is unlike most usual pinball machines of the era. The game begins with 3-ball multi-ball. There's no ball plunger, there's just a countdown, and the game just begins firing balls into the playfield. Your turn ends if you lose all 3 balls, but there's also a timer, and your turn can also end if the timer reaches 0. You gain time by hitting the acorn drop targets on the table, so ideally, the more balls you can keep in play, the faster you can make the timer go up. If you get down to 1 ball, the timer will usually count down faster, then you can fill it, but at that point, you can go for a certain shot to bring multi-ball back. Now overall, it's okay if you want to play something a little different, but for me, I don't like playing for more than a few games at a time. Oh, and remember earlier when I said that there was one table I didn't get all the standard goals on? This is the one. For some reason, one of the standard goals is to reach 180 seconds on the clock, and that turns out to be more difficult than it sounds. It's potentially the hardest standard goal to reach in all of the Pinball Arcade, and I found myself going nuts just trying to get it. At number 18, we have Central Park. I almost hate to put this table this low on the list, but ultimately I think the scoring on this table boils down to luck. Now don't get me wrong, there's definitely skill involved in being able to bump the table properly and flip the ball to keep it in play, but that's all you're really doing. If you get the ball to the flipper, you really just want to flip the ball as high up as you can and hope it hits lots of bumpers and targets. Once you get the knack for this table, getting extra balls is extremely easy, and you'll find you'll be getting an extra ball every turn. Luckily, the game will limit you to 9 extra balls per game. I actually found it fun to get all the standard and wizard goals for this table, and the wizard goal that has you scoring 1,000 points in 1 ball may take a bit of time to accomplish, but it's definitely not as difficult as the 180-second goal in Going Nuts. Number 17 is Teed Off. Now, Season 1 had No Good Gophers, and Season 2 has Teed Off. 2 tables with almost identical themes, but No Good Gophers pulls it off much better than Teed Off. To be fair though, Teed Off did come out about 4 years before No Good Gophers, but I don't know if that could be much of an excuse. The main reason I rank this table so low is because I find the Gopher's voice in the game very annoying. I might have been able to ignore it, but he's always talking and repeating the same things over and over. There are also these overly cartoony sound effects going off, and after a while it seems like overkill. I'd like to rank this table higher because the table design isn't bad and there are some good game modes, and there's even a unique roulette wheel in the middle of the playfield that acts as a party mode if you can spell the word gopher. But every time I think about playing this table, I think, do I really want to listen to that gopher? And I usually wind up playing something else.
Look out for the alcohol!
Number 16, Haunted House. Before I'd actually played these tables again on the PS4, I was looking at the table list, and when I ran across Haunted House, I thought to myself, yeah, this is going to be either the lowest ranked or the second lowest ranked table. But after playing it again, I decided to be a bit kinder to it. The thing that annoys me the most about this table is the fact that there's background music that plays, but it keeps stopping every time another sound effect is played. I think it would have sounded much better if it was either music or sound effects, and not both if the table couldn't handle playing the music continuously. Regardless, I think the theme of a haunted house is actually very well done here. There's the main floor, an upstairs area, and a cellar under the playfield. When the ball enters the upstairs or cellar area, the music changes, and it would be pretty cool if it didn't pause for every sound effect to play. This table also has a ridiculous number of flippers, 8 in total. 4 on the main playfield, 2 in the cellar, and 2 in the upstairs. At first I really didn't like it, but now I think it makes the table more unique. I know this is a table that some might rank higher, but I'm not that big of a fan of it, and the music constantly stopping and rapidly changing is a big negative for me. And number 15 is Class of 1812. Alright, the theme of this table and the aesthetics it contains really confuses me. It's not like I don't get what the theme is, I'm just really confused by the way it's presented. It's supposed to be like a comedic take on a monster get-together or a party or something like that, but with a title like Class of 1812, you wouldn't get that at first. Is it that these monsters are having a reunion party and they all happen to have graduated in the year 1812? No, I just have the feeling that they couldn't think of a good name for the table and they just named it Class of 1812 because the 1812 Overture plays during multi-ball. Oh, and if it plays long enough, then chickens will begin clucking along with the music. Yeah, it's that type of table, but it's not as annoying as Teed Off. Really, there's nothing wrong with the way the table plays, and the rapping monsters are pretty entertaining. But I can't get over some of the design choices on the table. Primarily, I'm talking about the chattering teeth, the beating heart, and the lifeless hand that just sits above the ramp. It seems like they could have been better implemented into the table. As they are, they just seem kind of out of place. The teeth move with the dialogue, and the heart beats and flashes, so at least an attempt was made integrating those into the table, but the big rubbery fake-looking hand just seems like somebody threw it there at the last minute. If it wasn't for the hand, I might have bumped this table up in the ranking. At number 14, we have El Dorado, City of Gold. When I was talking about Haunted House, I mentioned how I thought it would be ranked last, or second to last, before playing it again on the PS4. Well, this is the other table I thought would be ranked last or second to last. If anyone recalls my Crow plays on this table, you'll remember that I absolutely hated it. But having now played it on the PlayStation 4, I've changed my tune on it. The table graphics look a lot better, and I don't really find the sound effects that annoying anymore. There's a huge amount of drop targets on the table, 15 in total, and 10 of them are located way in the back of the playfield, allowing for some challenging long-distance shots, and I always like that kind of thing. I'm glad I wound up coming back to this one because I might not have played this one again, and I do like the challenge of trying to hit all 10 of those drop targets on a single ball. Number 13 is Flight 2000. This Stern table from 1980 has a pretty interesting method for activating 3-ball multi-ball. First you must light Apollo 1 and Apollo 2, and also spell the letters in blast off. Then locks are activated and you can start locking balls. Once 2 balls are locked, you can start the countdown by hitting the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 drop targets in order, and then locking the 3rd ball. The table will then blast off and cycle the balls through the 3-part staging area until all 3 balls are on the playfield. It's a really interesting concept that fits the theme of the table very well, and not only that, but there's a certain challenge to be had by getting the multi-ball to activate, but a greater challenge in keeping all 3 balls on the playfield. It's a fun table to play every once in a while, and the Pinball arcade version appears that the table has a bit of wear on it, and that to me adds a little to the authenticity. Number 12 is Cue Ball Wizard. Now here we have a table with a modern day Western billiards theme, and while it's certainly not the first or the last table to have a billiards theme, it does have the unique feature of having an 8-ball and a cue ball on the table. While the 8-ball is really just a feature used for the skill shot, the cue ball is actually sitting on the playfield where the pinball can hit and interact with the cue ball. It's not just there to get in the way though, as there are a couple targets that only the cue ball can hit. Otherwise, it's an alright table overall. You'll be going for the ramp shot a lot, as it's the only way to start new modes, and some of those modes even have you hitting the ramp shot again and again and again. Like a lot of billiards themed pinballs, there's targets representing each of the striped and solid billiard balls, but you really can't aim for them, and you have to rely on ricochets off the pop bumpers in order to get them. Also, I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like the extra balls are kind of easy to achieve on this table. At number 11 is Firepower. For its time in early 1980, this table offered a lot of things that were still new at the time. There was speech and multi-ball as main features of this table, although it really wasn't the first to do either of those. However, this is the first table to feature a rollover lane change feature, which is something that's taken very much for granted in most pinball machines throughout the rest of the 80s and up to the present time. What I like about this table is the way it really makes you work for multi-ball. First, you have to hit each of the 6 standing targets, whereby you'll then be able to lock 2 balls. And the lock shots aren't necessarily easy to get. You'll then have to hit all 6 targets again to access the final lock, which will finally jump into multi-ball. I also really like the sound effects on this table, but the downside is that the background noise is always stopped to play the other sound effects. I know it's one of the reasons I didn't like Haunted House that much, but I feel like it's not as annoying here. At number 10 is Victory. This racing themed table certainly has an interesting layout. Newcomers to this table may be initially confused as to where the ball is headed when the ball takes off a certain path or ramp. You may think you're hitting the ball onto the slightly raised playfield in the upper right area of the table, only to find it's on its way back down to the bottom flippers. But once you get accustomed to it, it's actually a pretty simple table to understand. The main goal of the game is to hit all 7 checkpoints and finish the race. The order of the shots never change, and once you remember the order, it's actually pretty easy to make all the shots without worrying about draining the ball. Once the race is over, a new race begins and repeats the cycle. You could just keep going for the checkpoints again and again, but working on the fuel targets and finish targets with the proper timing can offer up big points and help break up the repetitiveness. At number 9 is Space Shuttle. This is one of those tables that's grown on me over time. The main feature of this table really is multi-ball, which is pretty easy to get. Each side of the table has a locking area which can be shot at practically any time to lock the ball. Once the ball is locked, you can either lock the other ball on the other side or shoot the shuttle ramp. Shooting the shuttle ramp with 1 or 2 balls locked will release those balls for multi-ball. What's really interesting is the up post that is activated during multi-ball that will prevent your balls from draining between the flippers for a while, though another shot to the shuttle ramp will reset the timer or raise it back up if it's already deactivated during multi-ball. Aside from the multi-ball, there's good strategy to be had for aiming for other targets looking to increase multipliers and raising pop bumper values going for a high score. Number 8 is Dr. Dude and his Excellent Ray. This could be a contender for the most 90s table around, despite initially being released in the early 1990s itself. This table oozes of crazy contraptions and constant voice samples of Dr. Dude as you attempt to go from a plain dude to a super dude. You slowly gain through the ranks by collecting items like the Gift of Gab, a magnetic personality, and musical ability. There's also beating up the big shot and activating the reflex test, which then tests your ability to make 3 consecutive shots within a short time limit. The thing that sticks out most though is the Mixmaster, which is fed the ball from the ramp. The Mixmaster happens to be the main thing to shoot for in multi-ball, as it's the jackpot in the game, and the longer the ball stays in the Mixmaster, the higher the jackpot. It's a fun and addictive table all the way around. And number 7 is Whirlwind. The theme of this table is that of bad weather. More specifically, storms and strong winds. There are 3 spinning discs that will start spinning in the middle of the table during the storm periods that will alter the ball's path, and it can get kind of frantic during multi-ball. But one of the things I like most about this table can't be simulated by the Pinball Arcade, and that's the fan that was on the top of the back box that would blow on you during the storm periods. Well, I guess they could come up with some sort of USB fan that could simulate that, but I don't know who would buy that. It's got some nice flow and some tough shots and some entertaining voice samples shouting things like, "The storm is coming," and "Feel the power of the wind." This is an entertaining table, not the highest on my list, but I do like coming back to it every now and again. Number 6 is the Champion Pub. Now this is an interesting table with a lot going on. It's got the unique theme of a barroom boxing arena, and the game has you pitting yourself against a slew of boxing stereotypes. There's a few cool features on this table, such as the jumping rope area in the upper left, where you actually have to jump the ball with proper timing. Then there's the speed bag in the upper right area, where you control a pair of tiny little fists, and then there's the body bag between the two. All of the training will eventually lead you to a series of fights. When a fight starts, the body bag swivels around to reveal your boxing opponent, who will taunt you and punch you, draining your life meter. It's your job to hit him back and drain his life meter first. What's cooler, there's some little ramps that allow you to hit your opponent in the face. Overall, it's a really cool table, but sometimes I feel like there's a little too much going on.
Ow! Yeah, you're winning!
Number 5 is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. With the success of Terminator 2 in the early 90s, it's really no surprise that Williams made a pinball machine with that theme. And for the time, this table offered a lot of new things. This was one of the first pinball machines with a dot matrix display, and this is one of the first pinball machines with a video mode. It's also the first pinball machine with a swing-out arm cannon. Playing this table in real life was always fun because whenever it came time to fire the arm cannon, the person playing would almost always move to the side of the machine to aim better. And the Pinball Arcade tries to simulate this, but since I usually play with the camera locked, the camera doesn't move for me, making the shot a bit more difficult. Multi-ball is very interesting because it doesn't involve locking any balls, but rather activating the arm cannon and hitting the proper target will simply start 3-ball multi-ball. While multi-ball is going on, you could go for the jackpot, which involves reactivating the cannon and firing for the jackpot while the other balls are still flying around the playfield. It's a pretty unique challenge to be had.
Get out.
Number 4 is CACTUS Canyon. This Wild West themed table has a lot going for it. There's a gold mine used to lock balls for multi-ball. There's a train that races across the playfield while you try to save Polly, the villain with a bounty on his head, and the 4 drop targets in the middle of the playfield standing in as outlaws used for quick draw events and more. The game plays very well and the atmosphere is perfect for the theme. There's one problem with this table. The programming was never finished and it shows. There's a really generic match screen with no music, and if you get to and complete the final mode of the game, it kinda just ends with no real conclusion. Word is that the production on CACTUS Canyon was sped up and or not fully completed so Williams could work on the Pinball 2000 platform. It's a shame because it's painfully obvious that there's things missing from this table. The table in real life actually has some new software written by software hobbyists for a P-Rock interface board that finishes and expands the existing code with new modes such as Drunken Flippers and Cowboys vs. Aliens. And it makes this table really awesome and would bump this table further up in the ranks if it was actually implemented in the Pinball Arcade. Hopefully one day Farsate Studios will be able to use this new code and offer it as an upgrade to make this into Cactus Canyon Continued. But seeing as how the table really doesn't seem finished as it is, I really can't rank it any higher.
I can tell you that hurt. That horse is breaking.
And number 3 is Whitewater. The more I play this table, the more I end up enjoying it. This is a whitewater rafting themed table that is really immersed in its own atmosphere. The pop bumpers are disguised as boulders, the ramps are meant to simulate rafting down through rough waters, there's a whirlpool area the ball will swirl around, and the whole rear of the machine looks like a cliffside. And then there's the Yeti hanging out outside his cave that will get distracted by the ball. The game has very good flow, and there's many shots to try and make as you try to get all the rafts to wet willies and continue through the stages to earn even more points. My only real complaint about this table is that it's impossible to specifically shoot for the lost mine. You have to rely on a ricochet off a slingshot to hit that area, and I guess it's not that big of a deal, but getting to the lost mine 3 times will activate Gold Mine Multi-Ball, and that happens to be one of the standard goals of the game. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like getting that requires too much luck to be a standard goal. But you'll eventually get it, and then you could forget about it and enjoy the table for what it is. At the number 2 spot is Pinball. Right off the bat, I'll just say I like everything about Pinball. I like the outer space / pinball theme, I like the background music, I like the sound effects, the voice samples, and so on. To me, everything just seems to fall into place with this table. There is, of course, Pinball's visor, which can be opened by multiple shots, or if you're good enough, just one well-timed shot. Once the visor is open, balls can be locked for 2-ball multi-ball, where everything is worth double points. I'll be honest though, I don't think the multi-ball is all that great, and the real reason I get addicted to this table is because I like traveling from Pluto to the Sun, visiting all the planets in between. Advancing a planet can be accomplished one of 2 ways. The first is by hitting all 3 drop targets on the left side within a certain amount of time, or by getting the ball to trigger the left in lane to advance the advanced planet light and then hitting that target. It sounds a lot easier than it actually is, and I usually have a blast trying to advance all the way to the sun and then getting the special. If I had any complaint about this table, is that the ball seems unusually drawn to the left out lane. It can be frustrating sometimes, but it usually doesn't stop me from playing. And at the number 1 spot, we have Centaur. Now, I've just gotta give the number 1 spot of Season 2 to Centaur. If you've noticed, I tend to like tables that present a good atmosphere and gameplay, and I don't think there's any denying that Centaur has both, in addition to a couple of unique features. To start with is the theme. A centaur is cool enough, but when that centaur is half man and half motorcycle, then you've broken the cool meter. The playfield is wonderful artwork, and the fact that it's in black and white, only accentuated with color by the lighted color inserts, really make this table look uniquely awesome. The sound effects and the voice of Centaur is equally awesome, with booming sounds that really let the presence of Centaur be known. The table in real life has a special reverb board that accounted for this effect, and I kind of want a Centaur of my own simply because of this. One of the unique features of Centaur is to fire balls onto the playfield when certain tasks are accomplished, like hitting the orbs targets in order. This means that you don't have to worry about locking balls from multi-ball. You could just be playing and Centaur would just fire another ball onto the playfield, and before you knew it, you could be playing 2, 3, 4, or even 5-ball multi-ball. Another feature I absolutely have to talk about is the gates near the right and left flippers that allow the ball to bounce back into play by nudging the table with just the right timing if the ball travels down the right or the left out lanes. I could go on and on about why I like this table, but I think I've gotten my main points across at this point. And that about covers it for Season 2 of the Pinball Arcade. Now, I will eventually get to Seasons 3 and 4 and onward, But I think from this point on, the videos will be a bit shorter, and the reason for that is that starting with Season 3, there are significantly less tables per each season. And that's primarily because for Seasons 1 and 2, they were releasing most of the table packs as 2-packs. You were getting 2 tables per each pack, with the exception of certain tables. But starting with Season 3, each table pack only was 1 table. So for Seasons 3 and 4, there are only 10 tables each. So with that being said, I'm just going to wrap this video up. Thanks everyone for watching. See you all next time. Bye.